to the third season of the Coaching Cast, your working from home managers club. Regardless of where you are working right now, at home, in the office, or a blend of both, or whatever you do as a career, we've got something for you at the Coaching Cast. I'm Lisa, founder of Grip Corporate Coaching, personal performance coach, leader, and chief eye roller when it comes to all nonsensical corporate mumbo jumbo which suffocates rather than advocates.
And I'm Susie, sales and business coach at Future You Business Coaching, currently taking on my hardest coaching assignment to date, parenting that toddler who doesn't take too kindly to being questioned.
In this podcast, we aim to explore the leadership and coaching techniques required to navigate and survive the current business environment, presenting different topics each episode, which we will discuss with some special guests along the way, sharing ideas, hints, and tips for you to take away and try for yourself. We hope you enjoy listening. So today is our season 3 finale. It's the last episode of season 3. So Susie and I are going to discuss our season highlights with some help from a few of our CBBs, our special listeners, and give you a taste of what's coming up in season 4 in the new year. So stay with us and enjoy. So before we get into the season 3 celebrations, Suze, how's your week been?
Yeah, celebrations. Love that we're having a celebratory episode today. But my week has been quite intense. Lots still going on. Martin's back again. Martin's downstairs. So if you hear some background noise, apologies in advance in the podcast episode. Martin is here decorating my lounge this time. So big thanks, shout out to Martin. So if you watch us on YouTube, you might see that I'm in a different surrounding. I'm actually in the room that Martin was decorating the other week when he was here. So I've changed things around. So I'm actually in my husband's brand new office, which I'm a bit scared about being in today because everything's new and shiny, and I'm worried that I'm going to spill coffee over his brand new desk or things like that. So kind of navigating my way around it very lightly. But all good. Just lots going on. Went to Blackpool on Saturday, so that was really fun. Interesting, and didn't have the best build up to going, which I'll tell you about in a second. But it was really good. We went to see the illuminations. Never been before, so I've lived in the Northwest for 8 years now. I've never been to Blackpool illuminations, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go this year. I'm going to go and check out the hype, see what it's all about, and it was really good. So we took the dog with us. We took Marley with us, my little boy, obviously, and me and my husband set off. So yeah, we went and had a walk on the beach, saw the lights, had some fish and chips. It was good old family fun. I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I've been to Blackpool, but the illuminations weren't on. It was out of season, so I missed out. I went in April, and the lights don't come on there, which I didn't realise actually until I was there. So that was a bit of a letdown. Bad planning.
So it was good. And do you know what? There was some we got there at like 3 PM. It was absolutely raving. Like, it was like Vegas. I've not actually been to Vegas. Absolutely rocking. So, there was this one pub that we walked past. And I can't remember what it was called. It'll come back to me in a second. And it had blacked out windows. This was like 3 PM Saturday afternoon. Blacked out windows, 2 kind of bouncers at the door. And all you could hear was just absolute hard house banging out of this pub, and like flashing lights, like going like a pure like club like vibe. And I was like, wow, this is like intense. At 3 PM on Saturday, I kind of like it. Like, it was absolutely rocking.
Oh my god!
Like, wow, this is really something else. But it was really good. Just having a little wander around. But back to my point before, didn't have the best lead in to the trip to Blackpool, if I'm honest, in pure Susie fashion, pure Susie style. Nothing ever quite goes straight forward or to plan in terms of a family outing if we're involved. And that absolutely was the case on Saturday morning. So on Saturday morning, I was working out. So I work out every Saturday with Abby. So shout out to Abby. And I was, kind of like mid plank. So if you know what a plank position is, obviously you kind of lie on the let's stand on the floor in a plank position. Anyway, kind of mid plank, I was like, oh, really don't feel great. Like I was like, I feel a bit sick. It's like, okay, this is kind of like come on a bit quickly. Anyway, managed to get through the workout, wrapped things up with Abby, and I was like, to my husband, I was like, I'm gonna have to go upstairs. I feel a bit rough, like a bit dodgy. So went upstairs, thought, right, I'm just going to kind of like sit down. I took a mint tea with me because I thought, oh, that might like help settle my tummy a bit. I was like, God, I feel rough. Anyway, kind of sat on my bed, took a sip of the tea, and then all of a sudden I was basically projectile vomiting in my bedroom.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh my God. And I don't know about you, but I hate being sick. It scares me. Like really
it's
scares
horrible.
me. I hate it.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't control it. So I was running to the bathroom and I was like, I didn't want to get it on my brand new carpet. So I just got my hoodie and lifted my hoodie up like a bucket. It was just being sick into my hoodie on the way to the bathroom.
Oh my God.
Carpet. And then I just got to the bathroom and honestly it was like, it was just horrific. And I was like, what the hell? Yeah, it was obviously a standard Susie start to the family trip. But then actually once I'd been sick I felt absolutely fine. It was really weird like situation, nice family day out, but there's always a drama, isn't there, when I'm involved?
Just the image of you running to the bathroom with your hoodie pulled out in front of you, like some sort of like parachute, like puking into it. It kills me.
Oh my God, I know. So yeah, apologies listeners if you're like
so excited about going to Blackpool, like a toddler, just got so excited, just puked.
Oh, so it wasn't my finest moment. But then I was like, great, I'm not going to be able to go to Blackpool now. But actually then felt better. So we ended up going anyway. And it was all outside. So I kind of felt like I wasn't causing too much of an issue for anyone. So yeah, apart from that, it was actually really good. And also I've smugly started my Christmas shopping.
Oh my God, you haven't. The C word. It's only November.
I know.
I'm so disorganized when it comes to Christmas. Christmas doesn't really happen for me until it's Christmas Day. So I'm not particularly great with the build up. I have started thinking about present ideas for people. That feels quite advanced for me that I'm thinking about that. And it's only mid-November, but
yeah, see, I basically prefer the build up to the actual day.
Oh yeah, which to be fair, so do I. But I think it's just the last few years of having the pub, it's just the pub takes over Christmas. It just consumes it all. And then, I don't really think about it much, but
it's tarnished Christmas for you a bit.
Yeah, this year though, I'm pub free. So this could be my year. This could be my year.
Absolutely. You'll be up there with Santa and those reindeers.
Call me Delia Smith.
Oh,
I'm going to nail the Christmas. I remember watching Delia Smith as a kid and her Christmas specials on the TV. I was I still am quite a curvy individual, but I was quite a fat kid. And watching cookery programs was like a real thing for me as a kid. I just loved it. So I would sit and watch like cooking programs. Who does that as like a 10-year-old? It's bizarre, but I did.
I love that.
And Delia Smith's Christmas specials on BBC Two, I think she either came on after the Doctor Who or before Doctor Who, the old school Doctor Who, where people are coming out of the sea in clearly what is a costume and are not actually aliens. So that is a very fond memory of mine. Watching Delia.
Oh, Delia. Oh, I love it. Yeah, no, I do love Christmas. And I am looking forward to the kind of build up a bit more. Because obviously last year, Christmas was pretty much cancelled, wasn't it?
It was, and it was such a massive letdown.
Yeah.
It was not this year.
The best Christmas.
You're going to make up for it.
But yeah. But anyway, how's your week been? Have you had any more acts-based activities or chat? I need to know first off.
No, we enjoyed the rest of our week in London. We had a bit of a traumatic journey home on the Friday because all trains got cancelled out of Paddington because of a signal failure at Didcot. So no trains were going past Didcot. And clearly I was tired and probably still hungover from the entire week of being in London. So my brain didn't function and I didn't come up with any great ideas as to how to get us home. So got fixated on the notion of, well, we can only go by road. We can't go by rail. So we got on the Oxford Tube, which is the 24-hour coach service that runs between London and Oxford. It is pretty amazing, to be fair. And actually, a single ticket from Victoria Coach Station to Oxford is £11. Wow. I mean, how can you travel that cheap anywhere? That's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we left the hotel at 12. We got home at 7:00 at night, having had to get the coach back to Oxford and then pay for a taxi back from Oxford to our house. And it was only until later that evening that I realised that actually we could have got the train from London Marylebone. So that was irritating because I was furious that I hadn't had that realisation in Paddington Station, because I was just convinced that the only way you could get home from London to where we live is via Paddington. I just went completely blank. I forgot that you could get a train from London Marylebone to Oxford on a completely different line that was not going to be affected by the signal failure at Didcot. So yeah, I decided to tell my husband, Dom, that I'd had this realisation at about 7:45 at night after we'd been home for all of about 45 minutes. Let's just say that I didn't go down that well.
Yeah.
And when I told him that actually we probably could have used the same train tickets as well and avoided all the extra cost of paying for the Oxford Tube. And then, well, actually, we would have had to get a taxi back from Oxford regardless. But we probably could have got a taxi back from Oxford at around, I don't know, 3:00 in the afternoon max, rather than 6:00 at night, which is when we eventually got to Oxford. So, yeah, that didn't go down that well. I'm annoyed with myself. I let myself down as well. I just literally had a complete mind blank.
But you was a bit tired and emotional and just weren't quite, there in terms of the transport solutions. Okay.
No. Okay. So that was, it was not quite the ending to our week in London that we were hoping for, but we had a wonderful time anyway. We had a wonderful time. So shall we, now that we've covered sickness and travel failures and Blackpool, and I think you're feeling better now.
I am. I'm feeling in the party mood. For
well,
this
don't get
over episode.
Well, don't get too excited because we don't want you puking again.
True.
Let's crack on with the episode.
Let's do it.
So it is our season finale, and we are looking back on our third season of the Coaching Cast and chatting about our favourite bits, reflecting on the awesome guests we've interviewed, and selecting our season top tips. This will be the last episode of 2021, which represents our very first year of the Coaching Cast and being podcasters, because that's how we now classify ourselves. I am a podcaster now. So we only launched the Coaching Cast in February this year in the third UK lockdown. So it's a very special episode today, not just because it's the finale, but because it marks our first year in podcasting. And to ensure that we are commemorating this very special occasion, we've actually asked a number of our listeners, our CBBs, to join us and share their favourite part of the season and ask us a few questions along the way. So before we introduce our first CBB, what's been, just quickly in a quick summary, Suze, what's been your highlights from this very first year of the Coaching Cast and of being a podcaster extraordinaire?
Well, yes, I'm quite good that far, but definitely a podcaster. I mean, I actually, when we were kind of writing the episode, kind of thinking about ideas for today for the finale, and when you pointed out that it's actually going to be our last episode of 2021, I actually felt a little bit emotional, I'll be honest. I feel like we've always done this.
I know what you mean.
To an extent. Yeah. I feel like it's always been here. We always chat on the Tuesday morning at 9:30. And, do that on Zoom. And so I actually felt a little bit emotional. I was like, wow, gosh, has only been, since February that the Coaching Cast has been out there. And we've been creating it, we've been building it, creating a community around it, and obviously developing and learning each season as we've kind of gone through. And I've really, really enjoyed it. I think, this year has been challenging for so many people in so many different ways. And actually having the podcast here is a bit of a constant, both I think for you and I, And also I know as well from feedback from some of our listeners, having it there as something for them to listen to and perhaps take company from, learn from, but also to hear us kind of chatting and when they're either working from home or when they are out and about and just want to kind of learn a bit more. So I think that has been really nice that we've been able to kind of start to build a community of CBeebies, as we've kind of fondly nicknamed you all this season, and you know, talk about some really interesting stuff. You know, it's very much, I think, for me anyway, such a privilege to talk about a variety of different subjects. It's a great education, I have found, learning about different topics, bringing some of my experiences, my stories into things, but also learning about new things that I didn't necessarily know as much about before. And so, yeah, I think when we have, you know, we've had breaks before, but I think this break feels, over the Christmas period, feels a bit more significant because it is taking us into a brand new year.
Yeah.
You know, we have big ambitions. We do have some big plans for the coaching cast in 2022, which you need to kind of stay tuned for and keep your eyes peeled for. So yeah, it's been one of absolute like joy. I've loved creating it, evolving it, and you know, I'm really excited about continuing to do that. And I think probably one of the highlights for me in that first year was probably when we got our iWeekend feature, just because that came organically, and you know, that was our first kind of really big shout out in terms of what we do and spreading the word of the coaching cast. And you know, we just feel so passionately about people in work and in business, and kind of looking at different topics in different areas and demystifying some of it for people so they can be better leaders, be better managers, and lead and kind of connect with people better. And so for me, I don't know, that was just quite a proud moment when we got that little shout out in the iWeekend back in August.
It was. And I absolutely, like, similar to that, one of my favorite things of this year was featuring on the Hardcore podcast listing with Stuart and Chris, and offering our top 5 bullshit bingos of the podcast so far. That was just so fun.
It was.
I really enjoyed that. I think as well, another highlight of mine has been talking to some of our great guests, of which we've had many, but I still think for me the guest that stands out is Rob Stevenson, who is the founder of the Inside Out leaderboard and the Form Score app, and really having a authentic, genuine, real conversation about well-being and mental health. He really is an inspiration to me as someone who advocates all of those things from a point and position of real understanding, because he himself suffers with a mental health challenge, and that he has bipolar, and yet demonstrates how successful you can still be, that it's not the end, that it's not over. And that was in season 2, which I think, to your point, Susie, I can totally relate about the fact that this has only been 1 year that we've been doing this, and we've had 3 seasons, all of which have been so rich in content and had such great conversations, and I think prompted both of us to really think about our ideas, our thoughts, articulating our experience into things that can be useful to others, which I really hope they have been. I think generally the feedback has been so. But having fun at the same time and being able to be ourselves and showcase who we are as people, which is really important to us. And we always said that was going to be important for the success of the podcast, that we had an authentic, really genuine podcast that showed us as people. You know, yes, we have our expertise, which we've cultivated over years of working in corporate and training as coaches and doing all of our education, but I don't think we ever strive to be experts as such, and that's really important, and I hope that comes across as well.
But I think only on this podcast can you hear about vomit stories, axe wielding activities, fighting with people in public places, alongside any advice about how to manage your manager effectively. I mean, come on. It's quite a niche area that I feel like we're supporting. But don't you think that represents the workplace for me? That is what going to work and chatting and working with your colleagues is all about. It's about showing up, delivering on your objectives, offering your professional skill set, while also having a chat about how you got pissed at the weekend and snogged someone you shouldn't. I mean, we haven't shared those sorts of stories. Both you and I are married, so that would be a whole nother
That'd be a whole nother podcast, actually. Maybe we should create that. But you know, that's what being at work is about. That's the sort of thing, you know, when you cultivate close relationships with your work colleagues, you do share your stories, because at the end of the day, you're not just an individual who goes to work. You've got a life outside of working, and that's always been something that's really important for us to mirror as much as we can on the coaching cast, especially in the context of COVID, the lockdowns we've all experienced, the being forced to work from home constantly. You know, who knows what will happen in 2022? I think the world of work is going to continue to evolve, as it already has started to. And many people, those of you who listen, are working in a very hybrid setup now. You're working a bit from home, you're working in your office. Some of you are actually already back full time in the office. So 2022 is going to be interesting. And we will strive to evolve the coaching cast to continue to support the changes that are happening and to ensure it's still relevant. So yeah, you can hold us to that, CBB.
Yeah.
So shall we welcome our first CBB then?
Yes,
on that
let's do it. Let's do it.
So this is our CBB, Emma. Is that right? Yeah.
It is.
Cool.
Hi, Lisa and Susie. It's Emma here, a CBB and a big fan of the podcast. My favourite bits of season 3, I've had quite a few actually. I've really enjoyed the Prioritise Effectively episode. So the important and urgent matrix, as well as eating your frog and doing the hardest thing first. I've also really enjoyed listening to all of your guests this season and learning more about your experiences of small business ownership. I wanted to know, what have been your highlights of season 3? Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Emma.
Yes, Emma.
Our first CBB.
So yeah, so fantastic. So she shared her highlights. So glad she found the Prioritising Effectively episode useful and the urgent important matrix. I've had a few comments actually around how helpful that episode was, which is great. So the question was, what have been the highlights for us specifically for this season 3? So we just talked about our highlights for the whole of the first year of the podcast. So Suze, what's been your highlight for season 3?
Yeah, so I think specifically for this season, which we obviously kicked off back in early September, so kind of like back to school time, we kicked off with a 2-part special on imposter syndrome, which was a topic which many of you had told us on our Instagram that you would like us to cover in one of our episodes. So we took that on board and created a 2-part special. And I think for me, that was a real highlight. One, because I think it was a really juicy subject to kick off the new season with. And also one of which I know you have talked quite openly about kind of suffering from. And so I think for me, being able to kind of understand a little bit more around how that experience manifests itself for you and what perhaps some of your experience has been and some of the things that have worked for you, and just kind of hearing you talk about it in a bit more detail. We've probably never really had the opportunity to do that before. So I think I learned from hearing your story definitely more about it and about what I can do as an individual if I was to ever manage anybody in the future who was perhaps suffering from imposter syndrome, what I could do to help them with managing it. And I think also kind of based on some of that around kind of, I suppose, like topics which our listeners have really asked for, I think we've been really passionate about keeping it real, as we kind of said in the intro. And so another one of my highlights, kind of building from that, was our collaboration episode with Mark around kind of managing a career change. And that was probably a highlight for a number of reasons. One, it was our first ever collaboration episode where we managed to convince someone to come and co-host with us. Whether he will return, we might never know.
He's an amenable chap, Mark, so agreed to do it and put up with the two of us. Yeah.
But also, actually, I think the subject around career change, you know, it's something both you and I have experienced quite recently. We could talk about our own stories and use that hopefully of points of inspiration for others, but also get Mark's expert advice about how to manage a career change if that's something you're thinking about or wanting to navigate moving forward. And so I think a highlight for me really was just, I suppose, having that time to face into some of those subjects, whether that's imposter syndrome or how you manage a career change, quite chunky subjects, which you know, in day-to-day life, you don't really have a great amount of time to really kind of indulge in, learn more about. Well, I certainly don't, as a mum of a toddler and a working mum. And so actually a real highlight for me was just having that time to learn more about those things and to discuss them and have some great conversation with you and Mark around some of those experiences and stories as well.
I really enjoyed the collaboration episode with Mark, and actually I do see it as a season highlight because it was us doing something new that we hadn't done before, and I think actually what we've worked really hard to do throughout this first year in podcasting is to continue to learn, push ourselves, try different things, keep actually the podcast as fresh and interesting as it possibly can be for the listeners, but also for ourselves as well, because I think that's motivating. So I think the collaboration episode with Mark was a highlight because of that, and because I'm excited to see, well, how do we build on that for the next season and ensure that going into 2022 we keep with that notion of pushing ourselves, trying different things and seeing what it creates. So I think that's interesting. Not to mention the fact, I think the subject of changing your career or even just changing your job is always such a constant one.
Absolutely.
And it is an area that people find particularly challenging, quite scary. So I think as a topic, it felt really of the moment, especially because how the pandemic and people being forced to work differently has triggered lots of different ideas about what people want to do, how they want to work. So that was great. I think I really also enjoyed to build on that as a further episode highlight was the managing your manager, because I think I just love that whole subject, because I love the subject of relationships and the different dynamics you get in relationships. And I think that's such an interesting subject. It was a great one to really dig into and go into a lot more detail in. So I really enjoyed that one. So thank you so much, Emma, for your question and for sharing your highlights. We really, really appreciate it. So we're now going to move on to our second CBB and their contribution, sharing their highlights of season 3. So this is Sophie.
I've absolutely loved the subjects for season 3. They were very interesting and well chosen, and they fitted really well together. I loved the imposter syndrome two-parter, and I thought that flowed really well with Sally Hannah's episode. Everything she said was just like gold dust and resonated with me so much. My favourite part of the season, though, has to be Susie's workplace shame hand kiss, which I thought was amazing. And it really reminded me of this tweet that I saw the other day about embarrassing moments at work. And one person said that a cute guy they worked with tried to fist bump her and held his fist out for a fist bump, and she thought that he was pretending to hold an invisible microphone, so she sang it into it. Made me laugh, reminded me of Susie's workplace shame, and then I relived that joy all over again. So excellent work. Love season 3. Thanks so much. Bye.
That's absolutely brilliant. Can you imagine someone holding out their fist for a fist pump and the other
grabbing it and just being like,
I want to know what they sang. What did they sing into it? That's absolutely brilliant.
I know, because obviously that's it. Another part of season 3, we did introduce a brand new feature, which was workplace shame, which has given both of us a lot of embarrassment, but also joy at the same time, listening to some of the stories.
It's absolutely brilliant. I love that. I just think that's absolutely classic.
Yeah,
I just want to know what song they sung. Was it Adele? Hello, it's me. Wouldn't that be brilliant? Oh, bless. Thanks, Sophie. I'm so glad. So Sophie also really enjoyed the imposter syndrome episode, and great shout out for Sally Hannah's episode as well, which was all about how to juggle motherhood as well as a successful career, which I know we've had some great feedback on, and it was a pleasure to have Sally come on and talk to us. So let's hear what Sophie's question is.
What's been your biggest lesson from the guests you've had join you this season?
Ooh, that was apt. What's been the biggest lesson from the guests that have joined us?
Well, I can certainly say that talking from what we've just talked about there about the Sally Hannah episode, that really was quite an insightful conversation for me. It's a conversation, I could relate to so much as a working mum. and really had an impact on me as well, as kind of Sophie mentioned there. I felt very compelled and I felt very passionate about going away and learning more, especially around things like the gender pay gap, because actually it continues to be an important conversation, as you know, and it should be as well. And I felt like I didn't know enough about it, and I should. And so it really compelled me to go away and understand more. And, you know, her knowledge in that area was something which I really benefited from. And I think as well, kind of, you know, I suppose going back to the question there, which is about the learning, one of the key learnings for me, which I had never, ever heard about before, and now makes total sense, was when Sally talked about that girls are conditioned from a very young age around this idea of perfectionism, getting everything done to a high standard and being perfect. And boys tend to be more kind of advocated around just giving it a go and seeing what happens and learning from it. And as a mum of a boy, I was kind of like, wow, okay, actually, that's really interesting. I've never really considered that before. And thinking about kind of my experiences maybe of growing up as well, I think there is definitely some truth in that kind of premise and that idea. And for me, that was a bit of a light bulb moment in terms of some knowledge, which I just hadn't had before. I hadn't even considered, I hadn't even thought of. And so I learned a huge amount from that conversation with Sally Hannah, that being probably one of the biggest light bulbs for me. But I could have spoken to her, I think we said it in the episode, I could have spoken to her for probably like another day. Yeah. And we could have done like a 10 episode special and just talking to Sally Hannah about kind of juggling work and motherhood. But yeah, that was a really, really kind of impactful episode for me, just because I could relate so much as a working mum.
No, definitely. And actually, it was really interesting, Sally's point around the gender roles in the home and about how important it is to have the conversations and set roles and boundaries and responsibilities within your own family unit, because actually if you're not doing it at home, how do you successfully do it in work? And that was really interesting and such a great tip as well, which is actually, if you want to practice how to have those conversations at work, start home first. Really interesting. I think the conversation we had with Mark around like work identity and how like realizing that you can always change your mind, that actually no decision you make at any point, I mean, we were talking about careers, but actually this is relevant, I think, to anything, that actually you always have a choice and you can change what you choose to do. Like, it's not set in stone, it's not forever. And I thought that was really interesting. That's definitely something that stayed with me, and I've actually used it and shared that with other people in respect of the pressure we put on ourselves to make the right decision, and in a way that it's always final and that's it, and like you only get that one chance, which is just not true. So that was really interesting, because I think that does help us to alleviate the pressure around
absolutely, you
know, what we do, and especially around jobs. You know, I think we act as though if I make this decision, I can never go back. And I don't think that's true at all. I think that's a sort of social construct we have, and about how you don't want to go backwards because that feels like failure. I know I definitely have that. So that was probably my biggest learning from the guests we've had was that. And I think for many ways, it was like a reminder. And then I've been able to utilize that going forward. Brilliant. Well, thanks, Sophie, so much. Thank you for sharing your feedback.
Yeah,
Sophie,
thanks, Sophie. And also for that little workplace shame story there. What a gem.
I know that is.
Love it.
Still want to know what the song was. Hello, it's me. I think it should have been that one. Cool. So finally then, on to our third CBB, Katie.
Yes, our third CBB.
Hi, I'm Susie. It's Katie here. I am a huge fan of the podcast and a long time standing CBB. I loved this series. I really liked the episode on how to prioritise. I found so much of that so helpful. And in particular, my favourite episode was the recent one that you did on small business ownership. Being a small business owner myself, I just found so much of that conversation really reassuring. I got so much value, but I would love to hear what your top tips from this series have been.
Okay, so My top tips from season 3 are, so the first one is from the imposter syndrome episodes that we did. And it is the simple tip of breaking the silence and enabling people to share. So create the space to talk, ask questions and be curious. A common theme, I think, for most of our tips from all seasons so far. But really help to dispel the myths and the stigma, I think, around imposter syndrome. I think the more of us that talk about it, share, acknowledge it, the better. So that's my first one. My second one is around the prioritization piece. So many of our CBBs have said that the Prioritising Effectively episode was one that really was helpful to them. And I know it's helpful to me as well. It's a work in progress. So I think my tip is utilising that urgent and important labelling and using that as the review. Use the matrix because I think it does help. I think my third one is from managing your manager. And that is being really clear about what are you asking of your manager and what are you offering in return, and being really clear that it's a partnership. And I think that's one to encourage. I think it's really important as a leader to encourage that with the people that you work with, but you can do that both ways. And then my last one is from Mark's episode, which we did just talk about. And that is your decisions are not fixed and you can change. At the end of the day, life is moving. We're always moving as well. And our priorities are always changing. So I think recognizing that you have the ability to change what you decide is really freeing and helpful. So I think that's definitely one for me as well. So what are your top tips from this season 3, Suze?
Yeah, so my 3 favourite top tips from this season. Firstly, start with the episode 2 with Sally, our conversation with Sally Hannah. I've touched upon it already in terms of some of my kind of best learning from this season. But I think her tip about think about what good looks like for you at home, for you at work, is a really critical one, because actually linked to what we were just talking about before, actually, that there can be this societal expectation of what good should look like does not work for everybody. We are individuals for a reason. We have different expectations, we have different needs. So actually thinking about what good looks like for you at home and at work, that's relevant for your family, relevant for you, your situation, I think is a really important one, and allocating some time to do that. My second one would be from episode 3, also on prioritization. So I totally agree around the urgent important matrix. I think it's a really great little nifty tool which you can use to help you prioritize where to spend your time. But also one of our top tips was about the power of writing it all down, the power of a pen, and getting it out of your head. And I do believe, and I am a firm advocate of writing stuff down, just getting it all out, because actually it has this weird and wondrous power of making you feel a lot clearer around what you should do. So I think the power of a pen, writing it all down, just get it out of your brain, will really, really help you in terms of where you then go to prioritize. And then I think the final one for me is also from our collaboration episode with Mark, so episode 5, about how you manage a career change. And that's actually around treating a career change as a mini project, as you would if you were getting married or if you were doing a house renovation. You treat them as projects. You think about the milestones, the tasks you need to do to move forward. And I think the same principle Mark talks about, in the sense that it absolutely applies in this situation as well. It's treating it as a mini project, breaking it all down, getting a plan together, getting some milestones, some timings in, and also just being patient with yourself. It's probably going to take a little bit of time, but if you just keep on going, you'll absolutely get there. So they're probably my favorite top tips from season 3.
Okay, so we have shared our favourite top tips from season 3, and we have summarised them into one succinct toppity tip tops for season 3, which I'm going to read out for you right now. So the first set of top tips are all centered from our prioritization episode, and they are: write it all down. So write down everything you have to do, and that includes everything you've got to do at home as well as at work, so you can prioritize everything together effectively. And then use the urgent important matrix to be able to prioritize those items into what has to be happening right now and what can wait. The second set of tips are from the career change episode that we did with Mark, and they are: treat your career change or your job change as a mini project so that you really get a clear, detailed plan, and realise that decisions are not fixed and can change. So take that pressure off yourself. The third set of tips are from managing your manager. So that was episode 6. And that is asking the questions: what are you asking for from your manager? So be really clear. And what are you offering in return so that you recognise it's a partnership? And then the last tip we've selected for this top tips of the toppity-toppitest tips for season 3 is from the episode with Sally Hannah around juggling motherhood. And that's asking yourself the question: what does good look like for you at home? And then also ask the question: what does good look like for you at work? So you are clear on what you're aiming to achieve. So don't worry about remembering all of those now. As usual, we will post them on our Instagram page later this week, where you can find all of the top tips from every single one of our episodes, not just for season 3, but seasons 1 and 2. So all you need to do to find those is to visit our Instagram page, which is at The Coaching Cast.
We have introduced a new feature in this 3rd season of the Coaching Cast, which we have all been loving. Well, maybe Lisa and I less so, but it's been our workplace shame feature. So today, Lisa has offered to see us off at the end of this season and the finale episode by offering another of her workplace shame stories for you to enjoy. So over to you, Lisa.
So I have to admit that this is not actually mine. So I have cheated for this particular feature because I shame myself enough as it is. So I thought I would shame somebody else, but I'm not going to name them because we've said we'll keep this anonymous. But this is a shame that was one of my previous work colleague shames, and it is one of my favourite stories ever. So while we were working together in a customer services team, and it was a customer services team looking after businesses, and the way in which the department was organised was that actually every individual was working on a particular customer account, and we had account managers that would head up that relationship. And so one of our account managers was looking after a local authority customer. We used to look after a lot of those, so councils, and he had ventured up to visit the customer for a regular meeting to review their energy performance, because we worked in an energy company, looked at their energy performance, looking at their bills, just generally having an overall conversation. But it was the first time that this account manager had met the customer face to face. So they'd exchanged many emails, many phone conversations, but never actually met one another. So he arrived at the meeting, and in traditional format, when you meet someone, especially in a professional context, he said hello to the chap, so the customer, and reached out his hand to shake his hand. And the customer had a stump. So he was an amputee, and my colleague panicked because he didn't know the appropriate way to greet the individual, having stuck his arm out, and he was literally holding his arm in midair, like as a handshake gesture. So he just panicked and did a little bow. I mean, I don't know how you come. I mean, he then had to sit down and have a meeting with this customer, having bowed at him. I actually think the customer reacted to it very well in the circumstances, because it clearly was embarrassing for him as well. But I think he just kind of curtly nodded, according to my colleague. But yes, so he just did a little bow.
A little bow.
I didn't know what to do.
Oh.
I mean, what do you do in those circumstances? Obviously, he had no idea that his customer was an amputee. I mean, why would you need to know that anyway? It's not relevant. But yes, meeting him for the first time, I think was a bit of a shock when he realised. But he, in his shock, his panic, he bowed. So yes, so that's my ex-colleague's workplace shame. So not my own. There'll be more of those corkers in next season, don't you worry. There's plenty more opportunities for me to share my shames.
There's a little incentive there to tune into season 4 to hear more of Lisa's personal workplace shame stories. But if you have a workplace shame or a bowing story that you would like to share with us, then and you're keen to get off your chest, then we can feature those stories in season 4 next year. So just email them to hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, or you can message us on Instagram at thecoachingcast. And don't worry, all workplace shame stories can be anonymous. It's now time for Bullshit Bingo, where we call out phrases which get commonly used in the workplace, which, quite frankly, make us cringe. Today's Bullshit Bingo is another classic, and I'm actually surprised we've not had this one before, because I think it's that much of a classic, and it is touch base. Yep, it's one I've used. 100%. I don't know
if I've used it, but I must have done, because it feels like such part of the vocabulary of the working world. Touch base,
absolutely part of the lingo.
It definitely is. Lingo. I must have used it. Touch base. What is this? Where's this come from then? Touch base. Is it a sporting term? Touch base.
I don't actually know.
I just keep thinking of baseball, but I mean, I haven't got a clue where it comes from. I'd be interested to know the origins of touch base. That's all I'm saying, but I'm sure I've used it as well. It's such common bullshit bingo, this one.
Absolutely. This is a good one to end off the season for sure. Touch base. I've definitely used it. I've heard it been used numerous times.
Multiple times.
It's a classic. Absolute classic.
So let's talk about our favourite bullshit bingos then of this season.
Well, I have to say, it's been hard to think about an answer for this question. I feel like the bullshit bingos in season 3 have really escalated, like in a good way. They've been some really good bullshit bingos. I had 2, which I was kind of like, not sure, flitting between. One was Got a Hard Stop, which we had the other week.
Yeah, Brilliant. Dom's one. I think that is again another classic lingo. And then the other one was one from earlier on in the season, which was ecosystem, just because I found it bamboozled my brain. Like I was like, I have no idea what this means in the context of the world of business and work. No idea what we're talking about, love. I thought this happened in like, I don't know, ponds and things. Like wildlife, like I have no idea what we're talking about. So I think if I had to choose between the 2, my favourite bullshit bingo is probably We've Got a Hard Stop. I think it's probably one of my absolute favourites this season. It is a good one. Mine is Capturing Hearts and Minds. Without a doubt.
Yes, Capturing Hearts and Minds. That is definitely
mine. It was so good, that one. Capturing Hearts and Minds. Oh. I love it. It's so bad. It's brilliant. So yeah, without a doubt, Capturing Hearts and Minds is mine.
Absolutely. Well, if you've got any bullshit bingos you would like us to feature, keep an ear out for them over the next month or so. Please let us know, as we are looking now for bullshit bingos to feature in season 4. You can email us at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk or drop them in a message on Instagram, and we will feature them in next year's season.
So we are sadly coming to the end of today's episode and this season, and actually this first year of the Coaching Cast. So let's talk about season 4. So season 4 will be launched in January 2022, and you can look forward to more conversations and debates on relevant topics in business and coaching with some help from some special guests. We will be building on our discussion of inclusive leadership, which we finished the season with this time around. And we're going to be talking more about what does it mean, how does it present itself, and most importantly, how do you achieve that with more diversity in the workplace. We'll also be talking about building your personal brand. And we'll be continuing to share our thoughts on topics linked to wellbeing and mental health. So prior to the launch of season 4 in January, we will still be active on our Instagram page at The Coaching Cast, and you can listen and catch up on our back catalogue of seasons 1, 2 and this season 3 whilst we're away, wherever you listen to your podcasts, or even watch the episodes on YouTube by searching The Coaching Cast.
We hope you've enjoyed this season as much as we have so enjoyed making it, and have lots of new ideas, hints and tips to take away and try for yourselves. If you have any questions, thoughts or feedback, we honestly love hearing from you. So please contact us at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk or on Instagram @thecoachingcast.
Your support means everything. Therefore, if you like what you've heard this season and would like to help the podcast to be recommended to others, then please give us a follow on Instagram. Leave us a review on Apple or Google Podcasts, or both if you're feeling generous. And most importantly, subscribe to future episodes wherever you listen. Don't forget as well, you can find us on YouTube, where you can also subscribe to be notified of new episodes. All you need to do is just search for The Coaching Cast and then click subscribe.
We both love music and use it to motivate and energize us. So we like to finish each episode with our personal song recommendation, giving you positivity and energy as you launch into your next Zoom or Teams or even face-to-face meeting. We have both chosen a track this week to celebrate the end of season 3. And my choice this week is Justin Timberlake, Can't Stop the Feeling. What an absolute party tune.
I was going to say, such a party pop banger. And so my choice is Rebellion, Lies, in brackets, by Arcade Fire. And don't forget, all of our recommended songs that we share every week in each episode of our seasons always are collated into a playlist. So there is a Spotify playlist available for both seasons 1 and 2, and there will also now be a Spotify playlist for season 3. So that will showcase all the songs that we've picked throughout this season. All you need to do is go onto Spotify and search for The Coaching Cast, and you will find the playlists. So all we have left to say then, guys, is thank you so much for listening. Have a great Christmas. I'm saying the C word and it's only November, but have a great Christmas. And remember, you've got this. We'll perfect saying that together at some point in one of these seasons.
The end.
The end.
Mic drop.